Hi guys, I'm Mr. Razor, and welcome to my channel. And welcome to another monthly bullet journal setup video here in my Archer and Olive A5 size bullet journal. And as I always do, I chose a font and then wrapped the style of the spreads to match it in a way. And for this November of 2020, I decided to go with what I call the broken line font, in which I will make a follow-up video to this to show the entire font with the full alphabet and symbols for you guys to reference to. Now, by the title being called the broken line font, it's pretty much straightforward description as to the aesthetic style coming up, in which basically revolves everything being broken up at its joints. There are a few small exceptions, but nothing too crazy. And yes, this is also very close to when people use those stencils out there. But for me, I'm just using my ruler to do it all. Anyway, so now diving into explaining my setup. For this month, it is actually my first month experimenting with using vertical headers and subheaders. Therefore, changing up my later spreads a little bit, in which I will explain as I get to them later. But first, the title page is once again down to the core basic, simple and easy to follow, with the vertical November on the left and the calendar on the middle right of the page. Next up is the calendar with the November on the right. It actually made the decision of whether to push the calendar right or left of the two pages much easier, as I obviously had only one way to really go, which was to start the calendar to the right of the November header. And from there, the usual basics of setting the calendar up with a note section down in the bottom left corner. And of course, that is my personal preference on how to use the extra space after creating the calendar, but you can easily change that space to fill it in with any other little boxes or trackers or doodles that you might have in mind. And now, as we head into the monthly spreads, as I mentioned before, there were quite a few but little changes to make and accommodate for the space that the headers take on the sides. This mainly being that I had to squish the grids I usually make to be a bit like smaller or narrower. For example, here with my YouTube plan, film, edit, and post page, I had to cut down the size of each rectangle for each video. Oh, and for reference, feel free to check out my previous 2 monthly setups from September and October to visualize how my spreads looked with the headers on the top horizontally across the pages. This spread is mostly for if you got a YouTube channel though, as it helps me lay out the videos I have to get ready to share with you guys. Now for some of my other spreads with more of a grid with sections, I simply took out the space from the middle of each grid or the largest section of the grid and made it a few squares narrower, since typically it's the spot for listing the description and has the more leeway and extra space most of the time, and is also the space that I can easily fix like the writing into by just changing the size of my handwriting. For example, here with my financial tracker, I took out a few squares of space from the middle description of the transaction, and then the rest of the grid fit in just as it normally would, with more rows going down the page. Now, since I'm mainly a credit card user, when I buy stuff using my credit card, it will log into my expenses, not my payments, as the actual credit card statement is only collectively due at the beginning of each month. And because of this, the actual amount that is actually being taken out of my bank only happens like once a month. So that's why I have a tiny payment section at the top of the page. Then I left a second spot underneath it for any debit or direct cash transactions that might happen. And again, for me, this is rare, hence why I only left one spot extra in the payment section. Then for the income, I get paid weekly and sometimes have a bit of income on the side, and this goes right into my bank, so it has its own section too. And then lastly, the big expenses section is simply again to log all the expenses made on my credit card as a log to know what's going on to my next credit card statement. Moving on to my grocery weekly sales and sleep trackers next. For those of you new to my setups, the grocery tracker is basically a running log of the weekly sales flyer or something similar happening at your local grocery stores. And one little thing I did do different here is that to separate each week, I added on like a side tab, like those tabs you use in binders. And after each week is done, I will draw a line at the bottom of the sales from the previous week, then add a new tab for the next week, and keep going down the page and repeat again for the next week. Then the sleep tracker is the usual grid that I just cut a few hours of the day off from each side while keeping the wide range around when I would normally sleep. The hours, of course, being the numbers going across the page and the days of the month going down. Now here I got my mood and habit tracker condensed together on the same page again like I did last month. And to make this work, I split the page in half, well, close to half, and had to use like split grids in order to fit in the whole month for each tracker. It's actually pretty basic by just observing the way I set things up. And to clarify, for the mood tracker, the AM and PM is simply for tracking your mood in the first half of the day or the second half of the day, and whether it was a plus for positive, a negative for bad, or a squiggly line for okay, as those are the three symbols I use to keep things nice and simple. Then for the habit tracker, it's simply the habits written twice for the split chart, and then I will just put in a dash or dot or fill in the square if it was done with a corresponding day of the month. On the next page is my very quick songs of the month list, or also known as the playlist page or to go songs you are listening to kind of page. And I didn't use any rectangles or grids here, but simply a play symbol in the broken line style, taking up 2 rows. 1 row for the title of the song and 1 row for the artist. And here, a follow-up to the Songs of the Month page is my Lyrics of the Month page. Dialed it back down to 1 page since there aren't any big new albums coming out that I would be listening to. Last month, I'll put 2 pages for the lyrics pages since Keith Urban, who's like my favorite artist, released a new album. So I had a bunch of lyrics to write down from there. This page here is just a blank, simple page in which I will just fill in with the lyrics. I do post updates and photos on my spreads on my social media for when I fill these pages out. So make sure to go check out my Instagram at Mr. Razor. And I'll have links down below in the description and all that for you guys down below. Next up is my movies and TV shows page. Movies and TV shows that I watched this month, in which I list down what movies and TV shows I watched during the month, obviously. This is very similar to my grocery weekly sales tracker page, in which I just scrunched up the space of where to put the title of the movie or TV show to fit into the more narrower space. And again, just a running log of everything that I watch. So last but not least, before I head on to my weeklies, I have a very basic open 2 pages left for jotting down the Black Friday sales. Because of course it's November and Black Friday is the best deals coming around. So I really can't wait for that. So no brain dump page, as I know that my regular brain dump page would literally become a page for listing out all the Black Friday deals coming up. I laid out just a quick example of how I am most likely gonna go with for this page, which is just a simple bullet point to jot down those sales for each store I go to and to find the best deals and prices going around. For those of you who have followed me for quite some time, I am a huge sales finder and only ever really buy anything when things are on sale. All those stationery hauls that I've shown, I've always scavenged for the best deals around until buying everything. So all in all, for me, November isn't really much about Thanksgiving, but for the day after, because who doesn't want to save money while getting everything that they want? And now, just before I move on to my weeklies, for those of you who might be interested in checking out more about these Archer and Olive journals I'm using, which feature crisp white pages and 160 GSM paper that can hold up to almost any kind of pens, markers, and even paint out there, minus like those alcohol-based pens, which is just about a no-no for any kind of journal. Feel free to check out some of my Archer and Olive unboxing and review videos, and also check out their website, in which I will have links down to below in the description. And if you plan on buying anything, make sure to use my referral code for 15% off your order. So moving back to my monthly setup, here are the weeklies. To fit with a more vertical style, I decided to go with some long rectangles going down instead of going horizontal, except for the notes section at the bottom, as it was like the only way I could get it to fit in after fixing up the first 2/3 of the page. Again, like the calendar, the notes section is just what I like to do, and you can always feel free to replace it with whatever works the best for you. And this page is simply carries on for the next few pages, with the only difference across the pages being the flip of which side the November abbreviations are on. And yep, so that is my monthly bullet journal setup for November 2020 with its broken line font that I carried into the style and throughout the setup. And just a quick note on the last page, I put the notes in the third box on the right since it just fit there with the month ending on Monday, so I can just use a leftover bottom space for most likely some doodles for me. You can do whatever you want again to fill up that bit of empty space. And as usual, I kept everything very simple and easy, and as I like to call it, being creatively minimalist, as it doesn't take much to make things look cool. Just a little tweak here and there, and you got yourself a whole new style to flow with. And so I hope you guys enjoyed this video, and if you did, make sure to hit that like button and subscribe to my channel for more content like this. Also follow me on my social media for even more content and updates on things going on. In addition to bullet journaling, I also do lots of art and drawing videos, to stationery hauls and unboxings. And I also do lots of giveaways of lots of awesome stationery supplies and art supplies. And I will have several giveaways coming soon, so don't forget to subscribe with those notifications on so you don't miss out. And once again, thank you guys for coming out to check this video, and hope it brought some inspiration and ideas for you guys to use. And I'll see you in the next video.